Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works, where work continues on the Wonder Woman Extreme. I want you to take note of where my finger is right here. I'm going to put my finger right there, and let me move forward a bit. Look at there, boys and girls. Look at there. It's balancing about where it's supposed to balance. Why? Let's take a sip and then take a look inside. Let me break something while I do it. Lo and behold, look here, boys and girls, look here. There are batteries installed. There's a speed control just kind of sitting out here. And it looks like I have water cooling runs started. So here's my water cooling plan. This rudder does not have a pickup. This is out of the water when it's running, so a through-hole pickup here won't work. A through-hole pickup here will crash with the batteries. So I'm left with the option of a blast pickup. And I used this same strut on the American Spirit. And that's exactly what I did with that boat. I had to get a longer bolt because this one is just barely long enough, and when you add a 16th to it, the nylon locks don't have any threads to lock onto. So you need a longer bolt, and it just put a G10. I might make it out of carbon this time, but a little arm that goes up here with those kind of pickups that you could put on the backside of the boat, the one that has it cut off at an angle. I'll make a swooping curve one. And then the plan is this. I used a commercially available outlet. Normally I just glue a piece of tubing in, but because this hull is pre-painted and so forth, I'm just going to use one of those commercial through hulls, go into here. And because this is the first thing in the series, and because it has two leads, and because I'm not going to put dual pickups on here, one enough hanging off the back is unsightly enough. What I'm going to do is, as soon as I go through the hull, I'm going to go into one of those Y splitters into here, and then a Y splitter back to one again. So in theory, if you remember from your fluid dynamics classes, that in theory, the same amount of water will travel through the whole system. It's just that through here, it'll only be traveling half as fast. And if you remember from your thermodynamics classes, that with mediums such as water being your heat transfer and your difference in temperature, your delta T, isn't that great, because outside temperature is going to be, 70 degrees, and the hottest you're going to get these is 150 degrees. So that's 80 degrees. That's less than 100 degrees temperature difference. So the heat will still travel. It's just not going to travel real fast, although in aluminum it will travel faster. But so I'm slowing down the water flow so it'll have time to pick up that heat. And then you'll like this. It'll come into this tube here, and it goes under the mount, goes under the motor, and into this gazinta right here. So you can kind of see it going under the mount. So it wraps around with the motor, hits this gazinta, and then the final gazada. What I like to do, but it's not always possible, is to have your cooling exit at the top of the can. Well, in this time it was possible, and I can run it over here. Now, one of the things I'm faced with is these spinning gears are scary. So I've fabricated a Y harness that will just naturally tend to keep the wires away from these gears, but I'm going to put a doubler inside here, like a lot of people use to support the deck. This deck doesn't really need much support. It's pretty stiff, but I'm going to put a deck support there, and its real purpose is going to be to keep these wires out of these gears, because what could possibly go wrong if these positive and negative wires got caught in a steel gear? Then what could go wrong with lipos? I don't know, but just the idea of it isn't good. So I am going to take precautions to keep this out of here. Then the jam foam up here is going to be 3 pieces. I'll have a wedge that goes in this way to hold down that battery. I'll have a wedge that goes in this way to hold down that battery. And then I'll have a block in between those wedges that will hold those wedges wedged and will keep these wires away from these gears. Because now these gears, they can run in a gearbox and have real tight clearances between the housing and such, but the housing is not going to move. These move. So got to be careful of that. And that's pretty much all I have to show you. So I am making some real progress. Oh, got the rudder mounted. Here's what I did. I looked at buying that larger bellows that I like so much, and I bought one. And then I looked at the ship date, and it's scheduled to arrive July 2nd. Well, it's coming on a boat, not an airplane. It's coming on a boat. So because of that, I said, screw it. I'm going to make my own. And I got this big hunk of brass tubing here. And this bellows will fit on that brass tubing with some work. The one that's coming July 2nd will also fit on it. So up until July 2nd, I'm going to use this one. Now, this one takes some warming in some water, and you got to pull all the linkage off and work on just getting this thing over here. But it will go on there. It's not easy. And I have a silicone replacement on the way. So that's probably going to be one of my biggest challenges. But now, let's take a look at this. This is why I like these big ones. If you look at where the push rod comes out of this large hole, it's slightly to the right and slightly above center. As this push rod moves, or as this arm swings through its arc, you can see how the push rod moves side to side. Okay? That's the position the push rod is going to take. Now, it's also going to take an up and down movement from this, which is why it's slightly above center here, because it's at the very top of the arc there. So the only place this rod is going from here is down. So essentially, I've got all that so that this rod flies right here in the middle of this large tube. Nothing touches nothing but rubber. But rubber. Until next time, boys and girls, jet out.